Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline Sprick, and I have the opportunity to present Danny Davis today, who's going to be speaking us today about Cuurio. Danny served on the executive team at Lake Point Church in Rockwell, Texas for 31 years. 4 years ago, he created Cuurio Local to help reach the gospel through people who are searching for online. By January 2021, Danny and his wife Suzanne left the executive staff at Lake Point Church to run Cuurio full time. They now have a writing team of 15 people, a global prayer team, an advisory council of 12, and a volunteer staff. Over the past 30 days, Cuurio has had the opportunity to present the gospel to over 96,000 people. Today, Danny's going to be telling us about Cuurio Local and how it'll increase a local church's opportunity to present the gospel. I'll go ahead and pass it along to Danny. Thank you, guys.
Hey, I'm Danny Davis, and thanks for watching here. I am from Cuurio, and we're going to talk about digital and search and that kind of thing. And so let me ask you three questions. We're going to start with three questions. Why are we talking about this? That's our first question. Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about digital? It's because digital, this is not news. Digital disrupted everything. The biggest taxi company in the world owns no vehicles. Uber, the biggest publishing company, creates no content. Facebook, the biggest hotel company or lodging company in the world, owns no property. Airbnb. Digital has flipped everything upside down, and that's not news. You already knew that. The question is, how is that relevant to you? Well, because you now live in a digital economy, whether you like it or not. The reason that it's extremely relevant is that there are actually 7.5 billion searches every day on Google. Okay, now we're getting into search. And 7.5 billion means everybody is using Google to find what they need. To answer whatever the question is, they're asking Google. That's why it's relevant. And we have to get this through our heads right now. Search is very highly important, and it is relevant to you specifically. And guess what? The third question is it achievable? Yes, you can do it. It can be daunting and it can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. It's something that you need to think about right now. Okay, let's agree that search is important for you. You are sitting there going, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what to do. That's okay. Have you ever built a building? Whether you're a church or a business or whatever, was that daunting? Was it overwhelming when you went out there and looked at that empty ground and went, that's where we want it? And so you had to go and draw the plans and get an architect, and you had to get engineers, and you had to come out and you had to dig a hole. And it was so long before you even saw anything come up out of the ground. But then you kept working and you kept going and you kept going. And then you ended up with a building, and sure enough, it worked, and you're using it and people are coming or whatever. And it was daunting. It was overwhelming. You didn't know how to do it, but you figured it out, and you got people to help you that did know how, and you ended up with a great building. Okay, that's exactly what we're talking about here. The difference actually is you already have a tool in your pocket that is the ultimate tool for this, and that's your website. Your website is your main tool to achieve this. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about how that applies to you specifically. Why does it matter? How does it happen? And what do we do about it? Okay. Number one, search does matter. And we already touched on it, but it's because everybody does it. Your foyer is no longer in your building. It's online. Everybody knows this. Everybody checks you out first online before they come to visit, before they show up and make any kind of commitment. That's just the way it works. So how does that happen? How do they find you? Well, that's the big question. They have to be able to find you. And Google gets to decide who the best answer is for questions. Guess what? People don't come on, everybody doesn't know who you are. But can you imagine how much business you'd have, or how many people you'd have if you're a church coming in your doors, if everybody knew what you offered? Because there are plenty of more people than you could handle that are looking for what you have to offer, but they don't know about you. So That's why people come to us and say, well, I already ranked for, like when we're talking to somebody about search and they say, well, I'm already number one. And we always say, for what? Like, for what search? And a lot of times they'll say, well, for uh, whatever plumbing, Macon Plumbing or something. And it's like, that's your business name. That means they already knew who you were. What you need to find are those people who don't know who you are, but they are looking for you. They just don't know it. Okay. This applies to churches as well as it does businesses and vice versa. That's how it works. Okay. So Google somehow decides who gets on that front page. We have to make Google happy with us, essentially. That's what we do. So how do you do that? You start thinking in terms of search. That's your first assignment. This is a short little segment today. It's just to sort of break the ice and start your brain thinking down the path of search. Like when you look at we're going to talk about titles and stuff later in the next segment, but just a heads up and a warning. Look at your titles on your website. First of all, do you have any content on your website? If you don't, well, then that's your main problem. But if you do, go look at those titles. Is anybody going to search those titles? Ask yourself that. Every time you do anything, ask yourself, how's somebody going to find this? Are they going to search this? Does this make sense to somebody who doesn't know who we are already? Okay. If you can just start thinking down the lines of search, that's one of the hardest parts of this, is to get your head around that and get used to thinking that every time we do content, we're not only writing for the people who are reading it, who are already in our circle, we're also writing for Google. And so we'll talk more about that later, but I can tell you, first of all, this is relevant to you. It is achievable. It does matter hugely. You can make it happen. And we're going to talk about what to do about it specifically in our next little segment. So go home now and think about search. Think about what you've done. No, think about search. Think about your content. Think about your website. How do people find it? You may already know how they find it. You may already know some ways, but I promise you I can help you do better. All right. Show up next time and we'll look at some particulars. All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Danny. And thank you guys so much for being able to watch the Cuurio Local video today. If you'd like to learn more about Cuurio Local, you may email Danny at danny@cuurio.com or follow the Refinement LinkedIn page, where we'll be doing more Cuurio videos, so you may learn more about how to optimize your outreach. Thank you, guys.